Welcome to the Futureworlds Metaverse podcast, episode number 9. Today we have a very special guest. It's Mark Emtiaz, right? I always get your name. I always put an extra I in, from Letty.
Um,
And he was very instrumental in our Futureworlds 2022 conference that we had about a week ago. He and his co-founder, Mark DeAndrea, came out. They were on the Virtual Worlds panel. And they've also been very helpful behind the scenes with other guests, getting people lined up for us and connections, because they've been in the space for a while. So I'm glad to have them. Thank you for coming on today, Mark.
my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Looking forward to the conversation.
Sure. So let's start with some of your background, because I did a little LinkedIn research and it looks like you're kind of an entrepreneur and you've been in different areas of business for quite a while. But start me out where you started in business.
Sure, glad to. So after school, I joined the corporate America. But the interesting thing is that when I look back, the only position that I had, I was in corporate America for about 15 years. The only position that I had was the first one, which was the only position that I had that was in a preset position was the first one. So after the first position, which took 6 months, I came up with an idea and presented it to the company, and they said, "That's a great idea. Why don't you form a department around it? And here's the budget, and go create it." So from there, every position that I basically had for the following 15 years, when I look back at it, it followed that trend where I identified an opportunity within the organization, came up with a proposal to the management, and they said, "That's a good idea. Why don't we form a department around it and go do it?" So that's kind of took me to finally realize that, why am I doing this in a large entity? Why not doing it for myself? So the last company that I was with was Pfizer, the pharmaceutical company. And I left that company in 2004 and joined forces with my brothers. And we started a company which basically became a global company. We had a global presence. We were in Australia, Southeast Asia, Europe, US, Middle East, Dubai. And then we grew that to a pretty substantial company. However, we got hit pretty hard with the 2008 financial crisis. So subsequent to that, in 2013, I left that entity and started investing in technology startups. I became an LP with a fund that was starting in LA, and I was also investing alongside with them, or doing my kind of venture investments in technology startups and also in biotech.
So were you focused on like pharma tech, or did you diversify into different types of
No,
technology?
so after I left Pfizer, the ventures that I was involved with and the companies that we started, most of them had nothing to do with healthcare or pharmaceutical. We did some trading in like commodities like sugar, and this was real physical trading, buying sugar from Brazil, selling them to like Southeast Asia, that type of thing. We had some shipping business, so we actually owned and operated vessels in Southeast Asia and in the Middle East, where we chartered the vessels to oil and gas companies. And then we diversified into real estate. We did some investments in real estate, both spec and also development. So, kind of my background kind of diversified into different spaces. And when I started investing on my own, I started, alongside of that, I started really learning about where the technology was and where it was going. So I started educating myself in technology. So I was investing in tech startups in different spaces. I did invest in in biotech as well, because I knew the space very well. I understood it, but there was technology startup. And then crypto started. So I started educating myself in blockchain and crypto and started, tipping my toe into that space. So that's how it all came about. And then all along, one of my co-founders, Mark DeAndrea, and I had been friends we've been friends for more than, I guess, 15 years now, 10, 15 years now. And all along we've talked and we've been looking to do something together. And then last year, when all this Web3 space started to come together, we said, this is the opportunity, because we both are very passionate about the space.
Excellent. So your company's called Ledy, Ledy.io. What is the mission? Are you guys focused on virtual real estate? Is it broader than that, or where'd you start out?
So Ledy, basically our mission is to facilitate and utilize the medium of Web3 to develop and bring products that will make lives in some respects more easy for people, and also to be part of this movement, basically be part of what Web3 is and where it's going, because we truly believe in its abilities, we truly believe in the technology, but we truly believe in the promise that it has for the society. So we want to be part of this Web3. So that's what Ledy's kind of overall direction is.
And I know you guys started with, well, I think you started with a digital twin. Is that right? It was someone said it was a like a Beverly Hills physical piece of real estate, and you were able to translate that into the metaverse.
So we started with the development of 9 resorts, metaverse resorts. These were all fictional resorts. So for instance, one was on Mars, one was in the jungles of Amazon. So we wrote background stories about background stories about each, and then we worked with this architectural visualization companies that created what we envisioned this would look like in the settings that we wanted them. And then we bundled those with lands in the central land and with the sandbox, and we sold the package as an NFT. So that's where we started from. And then in that context, we started interacting with real estate brokers, because we were interested in working with them, maybe for them to sell some of these resorts for us. And one of them said, would you be able to create a digital twin of my listing? I said, wow, that's interesting. Sure, yeah, we will be able to do that. So she said, well, why don't we do that? I want you to, let's start with that. So we created a digital twin of a listing that she had in Beverly Hills. And then that received some good publicity. And then that led to the second one, that there was another agent who had another listing in Beverly Hills. And he was interested in creating a digital twin of his listing. So we created that. So
how does that explain to everybody what a digital twin is? Because some people may not know. So there's a physical piece of property, and then you're developing a digital version of that. How did you do that?
Exactly. So imagine a listing that an agent has, which is real house in real world, and then what we do is that we get the plans. And based on those plans, we create 3D images and create the file of that listing of that house, which is identical. It's because we are using the plans. It's identical to what the house is. And then we digitalize that file into an exportable file into the metaverse, basically. And we export it, we deploy it to the metaverse. You could, go to our site, Ledy.io, and you could see these houses are identical to what the real world houses are. So for instance, the house that was on Florida Drive, the first house, we were very short on time because her listing was coming out, and these things take time. They take time. So they typically, you know, they take 6 to 8 weeks to create this. So she said, just create the exterior for me. So we did an exterior for her. But the second one, which was on Florida Drive in Beverly Hills, he wanted the whole thing. So we created the exterior, the interior, you know, the marbles were exactly, the countertop marbles that he used, the appliances looked identical to the appliances he used. And he went one step further. He wanted us to replicate the staging for of the furniture. So we created the identical staging. We worked with his staging company. They gave us the designs and the direction that they were going, and we created the staging. So if you walked into the house and then you looked at it in the Metaverse, which was, we deployed it to Decentraland, they were identical.
So the agent commissioned you guys to do the work because he's selling the physical house. He's thinking this might be a marketing tool or some, at least a way to show buyers maybe that can't come to Beverly Hills to see the property. Maybe they're offshore, they're in Asia, they're in South America. They can now walk through this house virtually, and it's 3D, right? So I can see interiors, exteriors, everything to scale. I can walk through every room. And do I wear what's in Decentraland? So I can wear a VR headset, right? And see it as if I was there.
Correct, but you don't need to wear the VR headsets. Actually, it's a browser based. So actually, you got it exactly right. So for instance, as an example, there were a number of agents from China, because this was a developer's developed house. It was a brand new house. And there were a number of agents from China that personally visited the house. So what happened was that we set up on the screen in the house, we set up the demonstration of the house in the Decentraland. So while they were walking in the house and visiting the house, they would come in and say, in the theater, and it was on big screen, and said, what is that? And say, well, this is the replica of the house, and it's in the Decentraland. So two things happened. While they were there in the Decentraland, you would see people walking into the house. So they would say, who is that? They don't know. They're just visitors in the Decentraland. They became interested. The house is in the Decentraland. They're walking into the house to see what the house is, and they're looking at the house. But at the same time, they became pretty intrigued. So because typically speaking, what they do is that they come into these open houses and they video the whole thing. They do a very detailed video of the whole thing, and then they send it to their potential clients. So now they had another tool to walk their potential clients through the house. And so later on, the agent actually sent me a link of the Chinese agent's link, basically site. So she put the Decentraland video and walkthrough and the link on her website. She talked about it in her video that you could go into Decentraland and you could visit this yourself. And she put the whole thing on her website in China so that her potential clients would be able to visit the house by basically logging into Decentraland.
I mean, she could also do a tour, right? She could say, hey, I will help you log into Decentraland and walk through the house or describe it to you as you're walking through it.
Yes.
Was that house for sale in Decentraland, or was it only part of a bundle? Or how could, so say somebody's interested in China, they want to buy the house, or say someone's interested and only wants to buy the property in Decentraland. Is that possible?
So it depends on how the agent wanted to market it. The first agent sold them separately, said, if you are interested in buying the digital house, this is the price. and we will bundle it with the land for you. We will purchase the land in the central land or the sandbox, whichever you prefer, and you will own both of them. The second agent included it in the sale of the house and said, if you get this, you will get the digital version of the house as an NFT, and we will include the land in either the central land or the sandbox, whichever you prefer. So you will get the real house, and then you will have the digital house as well.
And how did it sell? Did someone buy that and they now own both representations of it?
Quite frankly, I don't know where that goes. Basically, our work was finished after we created the house and we turned it over. So I really don't know whether they ended up selling it. So during some of the open house, the initial open houses, we were there and we were talking to them. And he said that there are some people that say, oh, this is cool, I would want this. And he said there were some people who say, I don't care about that. So I don't know where that ended up, quite frankly.
Interesting. I'm wondering one day if the Decentraland or the digital version could be worth more than the physical version. You're seeing NFT prices go all over the place, right?
It's true. Yeah. It's like, it depends on, but the novelty of it is pretty cool. So I own the real house and I own the digital twin in the metaverse. So
And I think it's beyond novelty. I think as a marketing tool, that's a big deal. Like you said, people are spending, I mean, I know guys that shoot home videos and it's probably tens of thousands of dollars to do one really well, especially for a high-end property that's, 10,000 square feet. So when they're preparing and shooting and editing that video, it's sent out generally on YouTube. I guess you could send it to clients one by one or have clients link back to that. But the idea of being able to walk through a property from the exterior, looking at it from every angle, going room by room, and like you said, I think you were down to the detail in the marble, seeing that represented in a way that I could spend time in it, get a sense of scale. I think that's completely different than seeing a 2D video of property. So I'm wondering how many more agents. I'm sure it's probably cost prohibitive if it's say a low priced offering, but if it's a very expensive home or an estate, that makes sense.
Yeah, for high-end homes, especially in markets like Los Angeles, that's like New York, like Miami. I mean, these are global markets. These markets have buyers from all over the world. And the interesting thing is that when you look at the adoption of, let's say, metaverse in other countries, you could say that there is more adoption. There are fast tracking the adoption than we are here in the US. So that definitely could be a very valuable marketing tool for agents that are targeting the global, like Aspen, like, these markets, bring customers from all over the world. So yes, absolutely. I think it definitely could be used as a marketing tool. I mean, and they were using it as a marketing tool.
And someone needs to open like a global brokerage in Decentraland, right? If you just put one up in front and say, we have houses all over the world, come in and click on a tour and you can actually see the virtual twin.
That's absolutely.
Really interesting. So where are you guys now, and where have you gone since the digital twins, and what are you looking at?
So subsequent to that experiment, and quite frankly, what we are, given what the space is, given how new the space is, given how fast things are developing, we really at Ledi, we really looking at all of this, at everything that we've done and we are doing right now as the R&D that we need to do, that to understand what does it take to develop and deploy to the metaverse, to understand what does it take to work with a centralized platform versus a decentralized platform, to understand the pros and cons of each platform within each category. So we really are doing our homework because we have a much larger kind of vision and plan for the platform that we are going to be, that we are working on. But basically the publicity that we received from these digital twin houses led to the relationship with a district manager in the Central Land. He reached out to us and said, listen, I'm a district manager in the Central Land. I own 279 parcels in the Central Land that I would like to develop. I have done another development. He has a development or a game in the Central Land called Wonder Zone. And he said that I would like to work with you guys to develop this 279 parcels. So we teamed up and became partners, and we recruited a award-winning architect from Ecuador to design to do the master plan for the whole place. And we developed that. It's called Crystal City. It's a mixed-use zone, and it's a mixed-use district. We have an event space with stage and everything so that we could host events. And we, as you know, we broadcasted, we live streamed the conference onto the screen in our event space.
Yes, that was like the first. We don't know if it's the first Metaverse conference streamed into the Metaverse, but it was an early conference for sure. In Crystal City.
Definitely, I wouldn't be surprised if it is the first one. I have not heard of any other one. We could check, at least we could check with the Central Land folks because they would have the data on their platform. But I don't think that there has been another Metaverse conference that has been live streamed. And then there are spaces for offices, there are spaces for creative studios, and there are spaces for basically type of individual situations where somebody wants to do something for a period of time, have an installation there for a period of time, and then take it down. So we provide the opportunity for all of those.
Okay, so you partnered with an existing guy in Wonder Zone. He was already established in Decentraland. Why Decentraland over Sandbox or Upland or another platform? Did you guys have a preference?
So no, we are actually we are platform agnostic. We doesn't, you know, we will like to work in all with all platforms. This opportunity, he happened to have these parcels in the Central Land, so that's one thing. And also, obviously, as we all know, in the decentralized platform space, Decentraland and the Sandbox are the most popular one. And in some respect, Decentraland provides more flexibility in terms of the implementation of the designs. So and again, you know, the parcels were in the Decentraland. Now, one thing that we're trying to bring to this project to the interested parties is the cost reduction, because right now, if you want to build something in the Decentraland or in the Sandbox, for the most part, there are a couple of entities that offer this space, but for the most part, you will need to purchase the parcels. And, you know, for an entry position, especially let's say for an artist, for a creator, these spaces these parcels could become expensive. So what we are offering is a lease option, so that people would be able to lease these spaces and at a much at a fraction of the cost that they would pay to purchase the parcel and bring in their work to the space. So to that end, actually, we have had one event in the space, and now we are planning a creators event, holiday creators event for the week of December 19th, where artists and curators will come in, take up a space and display their work. If they're interested, they could, if they have their set up NFTs, they could sell the NFTs. So you could go to do your holiday shopping, NFT shopping in Crystal City.
That's brilliant. All right, so why Crystal City? Give me some background on the theme. Why is it called that? What is the overall theme? I know I've been in there. I've seen that there's a glacier. I know it's got like almost like ice crystals, but is that the underlying theme, or why did you go with that?
Yeah, so Felipe Scudero, who is the architect, he came up with three different concepts, completely different concepts. And when they were all really nice designs, beautiful designs. But when we saw the Crystal City design, we all kind of felt like this is it. This is the direction we want to go. And as you pointed out, the inspiration are these crystal towers that are set on top of these glaciers. And the background here is that unlike the real life where the developments and our human activities are melting away the glaciers, here you could have your activities and we do not harm the environment and the glaciers stay intact. So it is the metaverse.
So it's climate proof. But this is an interesting question because I don't know. Are there seasons in Decentraland? Every time I'm in there, it looks the same. So I don't even think there's nighttime, right? Is it look the same all the time in Decentraland?
No, actually time changes. It goes through the 24-hour circle, the sun moves and then you have nighttime. And then pretty soon, when you go to the central and you'll see that there's snow everywhere.
Is it
There's
okay?
a snow on the ground.
But where is it based? Because if I usually go on it in the daytime in LA,
Mhm.
it always looks the same to me. So is it based on where I'm located, or is it is it tied to a different time zone, I guess is the question, and longitude and latitude?
I think, I think the time zone is East Coast time zone. I think, I'm not sure. That's a great question. I'm not sure what it is. But you could also, in your own settings, you could go and change the time. And if you change the time in your settings, you will see that it will, the sun moves and, that you have a sunset and then you have night and evening time and all that. So
So if
yes.
I walk from one parcel to another, it could be in a completely different time zone, completely different season.
Well, two things. One is that it depends on the design that's on the parcel. So, for instance, if somebody makes a design with snow on the ground or year round, then yes, you will see snow in one parcel and you will not see snow in another parcel. But if you do move around, typically speaking, you will see the same time zone, unless you change the time zone on your setting, where then it will change the time zone for all the parcels. It doesn't change the time zone for that particular parcel. It will change it for you, the whole platform.
I never thought about that. I've been in the Central End maybe, I don't know, 10 times, and it seems the same. But I do recall I was in there once at night and it was dark, and like I was in your area where Crystal City is, and the screen was in a nighttime setting, different than in the daytime. But it was also later in Los Angeles in my time zone. So I'm wondering, I didn't think it could be tied to a different time zone. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think it is tied to a different time zone. If I have that correctly, don't quote
Okay,
me on
so
that, but
are you guys bringing in third parties? Are you bringing in brands? What's the plan for developing out Crystal City?
yeah, so there is already one brand yes, there's already one brand that we have executed an agreement. They're actually buying part of the parcel. They purchased a 4x4 parcel, and they're going to be deploying a very national reputable brand. You will definitely recognize the name. I'm not at the liberty to disclose it yet, but they have purchased parcel in Crystal City, and And we have had a couple of creators who have purchased, who have studios now there, and these are people that are creating wearables, and they have studios in there. And so the idea is that yes, we will be working with brands that would have interest in having space in the metaverse, and we will be able to work with them to either design the space, or they could have their own space and design it and deploy it. There offers flexibility in terms of how they would want to work with us, but the space is available both in raw or in the towers or in the event area separately, so that they could take on a space. Both brands, artists, creators, musicians, anybody who wants to have a presence, let's say, for instance, Sotheby wants to have a presence, doesn't matter.
Are there zoning issues? Can you have a concert space next to a meditation space? I mean, how do you guys work out the issues between different tenants?
So right now there is no zoning, so that's the beauty of metaverse. So you don't have to worry about zoning issues. You don't have to worry about the laws of physics in some respects. So you don't have to worry about structural compliance. So not that doesn't exist now. What we have done, actually, one of the points that we make to potential clients is that if you went and purchased a parcel in the central land and you put up your brand, whatever that brand is, and somebody came, you have no control over who will purchase the parcel next to you, and it might be something that you really don't have any interest to be adjacent to. But in Crystal City, we try to create a situation where there is some sort of harmony in terms of who goes there and who is the brand, so that you don't have that that kind of complexity in who your neighbor is and whether you want to be next to that neighbor.
So the governance is with Letty, or how do you guys resolve the governance? Is there going to be a voting body or like an HOA, or what do you envision that as?
So right now the governance is with Letty. Right now, this is what we have in place. The governance is with Letty for Crystal City. Obviously, we need to be within the compliance of the central land, but that's it. That's doesn't really have anything to do with your neighbor and those type of things. So that is all within Letty. But what we are going to do is, as the list of the clients grow, we definitely are going to bring in more input and give more decision making to the clients. That has always been the plan.
And just a curious question. I know you have coordinates to get to, let's call it it's just so bad, but 2D, right? If you say like -255, that puts me on a plane. But what if I'm in a tower, right? What if I have a loft in a tower, and the flat coordinates are -255? Is there another coordinate for vertical? How do I identify where I might be in a vertical sense?
So the coordinates are going to be on the land, on the parcel. The parcels have designated coordinates. The tower does not have, each floor of the tower does not have a designated coordinate. So for instance, if you go to -254, then you would land on the stage, right in front of the towers on the stage. Now, if you have space in one of the towers, then there are two ways to get to your space. One is that you could actually walk into the atrium of the towers and take the elevator up. There's the elevator, you get on the elevator, and there are numbers, you push your number and it takes you to the floor that you want to go. The other one is that there are some of the spaces. So for instance, there is an observation deck. The observation deck is on the 15th floor of one of the towers. Right now, you could take the elevator up there, or you could teleport yourself up there. So so when you get to the space, you get to the event space in front of the towers. If you point to the tower, the observation deck, it will allow you to jump and teleport to the observation deck. And we are going to create more of that for different floors so that you will be able to teleport to the floor.
Interesting. I mean, I would think that at some point they would add a third coordinate, right? So if there's 10 spaces on the 15th floor, just getting me to the 15th floor, now I still have to go to the different spaces on that floor. And if I can't see it, like say it's on the back end of the tower, how would I teleport to the back side, right? I think they're going to have to add a vertical three-dimension.
That's a very, very interesting idea. And that's very, that's pretty cool, adding a third dimension to it so that it would become your address in a sense. So I'll definitely talk to the team about that to see if there is any way, to incorporate that into the decentralized platform, because the coordinates are part of the decentralized platform. They are not something that we are designating.
Sure, but it's flat. Like you said, negative 254, that's only an X and a Y coordinate. The Z coordinate, which I gotta believe people are gonna build up or down, that's gonna become very important.
Yeah, absolutely. So, excuse me, right now, we are the tallest mixed-use space in the central land. But yes, you're absolutely right. There are some height limitations in terms of the relationship and the ratio to the parcels, to the size of the land that you're building on. So, for
What's
instance,
the limit? Do you know?
So it's a ratio. So, for instance, if you have a 4x4 parcel, you can't build as high as we have on a 279 parcel. You see, so if you have 16 parcels, that's going to be much shorter than somebody who has 200 parcels. So it's directly related to the number of parcels, and that's how the ratio works.
How high are your towers?
So the tallest the tallest tower, I think, is 160 feet.
Wow. So that could be 16 floors.
It's yes, it's give or take. Exactly. I think we have 18 floors, maybe.
And are you at the limit or is that?
Yeah, we are at the limit.
Okay, so
yeah, we pushed it to the limit.
You have 279 parcels and you could go 16 or 18 stories up. Okay. I gotta believe because they have a limit, they know the airspace, right? And they must be able to identify how high you go. So there must be a way to incorporate a coordinate, which would be much more helpful because I gotta imagine if you sell out, 18 floors on your tower, someone's gonna want to not have to take the stairs every time.
Right. Yeah. Taking your avatar taking 18 floors of stairs is sometime is some task. Absolutely, that's gonna be yes, absolutely.
So, all right, you got Crystal Cities. You're bringing in brands. You've got one brand. You've got towers built. Is there an overarching plan for other types of areas within Crystal City? Are you going to build other cities? Where do you guys go from here, Mark?
Okay, so right now, our focus is to make Crystal City a fully functional, utilized space. So that's what we're focusing on right now. Bringing more events, like only working with brands, bringing the brands to the space, and making this somewhere that people will like to hang around. Now, one element with regard to the metaverse is that the space has to be, doesn't matter what space it is, its space has to be gamified. If people are going there, they want to be able to do something. So that's the other element that we are working on, to gamify is we are not going to be a gaming entity, but we are going to gamify Crystal City, so that when people, the entertainment part, the entertainment component is very valuable for those who visit, and they will have reason to visit and come back, and for the brands, so that there is traffic, because at the end of the day, all this is about creating traffic in the metaverse. So we are working, those are the two focuses that we have right now, to gamify Crystal City, create more events, and work with brands to onboard them to the space.
Now we're seeing that, and we brought this up at the conference as well in our conversation there, where the gaming platforms seem to have all the eyeballs right now, and the decentralized platforms seem to have less. And the question is, are brands going to come in and gamify a lifestyle versus bringing in an actual game and having a brand presence in a game versus a gamified brand presence? And I think that balance is being starting to be figured out now, between different brands and different platforms, right? I mean, you see a lot of things happening in Roblox, I think because there's a lot of eyeballs there, and their engines are probably more sophisticated than some of the engines available right now in Decentraland or Sandbox. Where do you see that? Do you see that conversions happening, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a great point, and it's a great question. So I think what is going on is that everybody is in experimental mode. Everybody is experimenting. Absolutely. The gaming platforms do have the traffic, do have the eyeballs. But then there is this major movement to decentralizing it. And some of the gaming platforms, like, Epic Games and the CEO, Tim Sweeney, has talked about that we need to move toward decentralization. So I think we are going through this complete change, that the platforms, the brands, the creators, everybody's experimenting to basically see what the masses would like, what is the mass adoption. And I think in the end, it's not going to be one versus another, because people have different tastes. At the end, the customer has to make the decision. What we need to do is create good products, that create some value to the customer, whether it's entertainment value, whether it's information value, whatever it is. We need to focus on the customer. We need to focus on creating good products that either solves some problem or creates some value that is not there right now, and then leave it to the customer.
Well, and the other point is, I think in a decentralized landscape, we're talking about ownership, right? So where a creator now can have and participate in ownership is much different than being in a Roblox, where Roblox governs everything and owns everything, and you can buy into it and use it, but you don't own it. Whereas in Decentraland, like with Crystal Cities, you guys own those parcels, right? You can lease them out, you can put on a show, you can have exhibits, you can do whatever you want because you're sharing in the ownership of that, which I think will change how people relate. And as a creator, I think creators are going to focus on places where they can actually participate financially and, like you said, delivering value from something they own versus something they're renting or something they're just using for a short time.
Yes, absolutely. I think what we see is that when you look at individual creators, especially those who are so passionate about their work, more and the work is more important to them than the financial reward. They practically all are on the decentralized side. They really want that ownership, they want that control, they want to be able to have that message for their end user, all that stuff. On the brand side, because there is more mandate on immediate ROI and those type of things, we see that some very critical decision making is being done now on kind of waiting, and it seems like some are experimenting with both sides and trying to learn the pros and cons of both sides. As I mentioned to you, once we and make the announcement goes out about this brand. This is a national brand. This is a global brand that is coming to the Decentraland. They chose Decentraland over, let's say, Roblox. But there are a lot of brands in Roblox as well. So I think there's a lot of experimentation that is going on and has to continue because there are a lot of other elements still that needs to be figured out and needs to be developed for mass adoption.
I think you're right, and also the line blurring between creator and consumer, right? So just because you're looking or using something in one sense, you could be creating it in the other sense. And we're talking to we talked to the same people at DressX and Diverge, digital fashion, right? People are creating their own clothing and they're wearing it and they're buying it and they're selling it. So the line between strictly being someone who's consuming or strictly being someone who's creating is, I think, being blurred. And that, again, back to ownership. Would you rather create an environment where you own nothing, or would you rather create an environment where you own everything and then you have control over pricing and distribution, et cetera, et cetera? So I think this is a much deeper conversation, but
Yes, absolutely. No, I think so. What the way I look at it is that we are in such an early stage, and in my view, it would be short-sighted if, for instance, the centralized entities will think that, oh, we have more traffic, we have everything, and therefore we are going to do our own thing. And the decentralized folks say, well, we have the creators that we're going to do the own thing. My view is that there's got to be, right now is the age where we need to do collective work. There's got to be a lot of collaboration. So, you know, I'm personally not enthused about the fact that we have two kind of organizations that have been formed, and one is all the large corporations with the centralized focus, which is called the Metaverse Standard Forum or MSF, and then one is the decentralized entities, which is called Open Metaverse Alliance. So where, you know, if there isn't mass adoption, Meta is not going to benefit from this. Microsoft is not going to benefit from this. Neither is Decentraland. So I think there's got to be collaboration to create the infrastructure, to create the messaging, to create what is needed for mass adoption. Then this space has so much promise. It is so huge that, you know, you will leave it to the customers. See which platform do they prefer? Which, you know, where does the customer want to go?
I think you're right. I mean, this is the beginning. This is a chance to build community, chance to work together, a chance to, like you said, bring in both sides of that conversation and build something that delivers value. Because you're right, if you deliver value, the consumers will come. That's been proven again and again. If it's something that costs or is it too hard to get to or doesn't benefit somebody, no one's going to come to it. So I think it's literally about how do you deliver good value, how do you work across the board, build something that's got transparency and interoperability, which I think is also a Web3 concept, because you don't want to silo things down and say you can only use this wearable here. What if I bought 10,000 wearables and now I can't use them in a different platform? It's useless. So I think there's going to be
Right.
some issues, but that's a big area of discussion as well.
Right. It's exactly, you know, it's like it's like if in real world you went and bought an outfit and they said, okay, you could wear this to this place, but you can't wear it to this party. You could wear this to this party, but you can't wear it to this party. That has to be the individual's choice. It shouldn't be the platform. So the interoperability is very critical, I think. I think obviously the infrastructure that would enable the speed and the bandwidth is very important. I think there is that work is moving forward, that which is great. But all subsequent to that, and in parallel with that, I think the interface right now, especially with the decentralized platforms, the interface is really not ready for mass adoption. There. So, for instance, some of the platforms, when you want to get on the platform, it reminds me of back then when we had the dial-up process. You had to wait, and well, back then people did not have a perceived standard, so they didn't know. So they were okay. They would take it. But now there is a standard of how fast you need to connect. And if that is not there, you would lose a lot of people that are not going to, say, oh God, this is not going to work. So there is that. I mean, and the other thing, like it's simple things, like if you were going to create a digital wallet, it is a process.
Yes.
The process, and also not only it is a process, it looks like it's something that's for coders. It doesn't.
Yes.
It will not work with my hand. My hand is not going to be able to create a digital wallet.
And they want a picture of your ID, the front and the back, and your passport, and you're holding up. It's there's still too much friction to get into it.
So many pain points, so many touch points that it just is not ready for. So those are some of the things that we really need. There's a lot of opportunity in creating those type of things. Then there's the standardizations. Both the centralized and centralized platforms will benefit if there is a common standardization. So for instance, visually, there are icons that everybody would recognize, whether it is in Decentraland or whether it is Meta, that it will benefit both. So those type of things there are a lot of areas that I think the entities these organizations could work together. And then I think very important is the messaging. Educating the customer and messaging, taking control of the messaging, and don't let others create the message for the industry. If others create the message, most likely it's not going to be rosy, because there is no fun. There is, it doesn't sell. Good stuff doesn't sell, and it's not dramatic. So the messaging is the other part in here that I think is opportunity for collaboration and working together. So it's a lot of work still needs to be done, but it's an amazing space and an amazing opportunity in my view. It is amazing opportunity and amazing development in this movement from digital to spatial. I think it is amazing that we are here and we are witnessing this as this is happening.
100%. I know you have to run, but I appreciate you being here today. And you're absolutely right, Mark. There's so much in front of us. The potential is huge. The opportunities are just starting to open up now. We'll have further conversations. I want to thank you for joining us at the last minute. Everybody, Mark, Antias! Thanks for being on Futureworlds.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it and I enjoyed it. It's always lovely and nice to have these conversations. And specifically, I enjoy talking to you about these things. Thank you very much, Steve.